This is the Transforming Anxiety podcast with Kelly Hanlon McCormick, and today is episode number 229, The Boat, the Volcano, the Mountaintop, the Tide. Welcome to Transforming Anxiety. I'm your host, Kelly McCormick. I'm a mom to 2 boys, a wife, friend, daughter, and sister, and I'm a certified life coach, yoga teacher, and soon-to-be mindfulness meditation teacher. I'm no stranger to anxiety, and I'm here to teach you how to manage your mind and your emotions so that you too can transform anxiety into calm, peace, and whatever you want for your life. I'm so glad you're here. Hey there. Welcome in today, folks. We made it. My people are going back to school. I know the past week or so, the week or two, the next week or two, it's all just this whole month, right, is full of back to school stuff for all the families. And I have to tell you, that means fall is coming. All the pumpkin things are coming. Boots and sweaters are coming. Cooler weather's coming. I know, I sound totally cliched. I love it all. I am so here for it. And the kids are going back to school. Summer is great, but I cannot wait for fall. I'm so ready. And I have to be honest, I'm not feeling terrible about it. I hope I hope this finds you well. I hope you're doing well, whatever you're up to with your routine, your family, however things are going for you. My intention for today is that you know you're not alone. That you really feel how very many people are experiencing anxiety and stress and overwhelm and feeling just like you. And that you know that we're all in this together. That there's a reason we're having these conversations, and it's because you're not the only one. All right, so let's get into it. My other intention for today, for our conversation today more specifically, is that I can offer a few images that are helpful as you're navigating anxiety and stress and overwhelm and worry and any other tricky emotions that pop up, right? Grief, anger, sadness, frustration, boredom, irritation, you name it. I have found that these mental pictures really help in those times. I use these often, personally. It's kind of a smorgasbord of things that we're going to discuss today, right? The boat, the volcano, the mountaintop, the tide. But I think this gives a good variety. And you're going to notice they're mostly rooted in nature, which I always find helpful. It's a good way to get right to the heart of things. It takes many tools and lots of different practices to transform anxiety. So I wanted to offer you another tool that I use today with this conversation about the boat, the volcano, the mountaintop, the tide. Just a new way of thinking through things and something to ground yourself with. So that's my hope for today, giving you some mental images that you can call up when you're feeling kind of yucky. Yeah? All right, so let's start with the boat. The boat. Picture a boat. Any boat, whatever comes to your mind is fine. And you know how boats sit on top of the water, right? You're floating on top of the water when you're in a boat, this container of sorts that's buoyed by the water. And there's a sense of security, of safety, being inside the boat. Whatever is in the water underneath you, it's almost like it's separate from the experience of being in the boat. Not always. Sometimes there are waves or storms, or you can see that sharks are circling the boat. Your experience in the boat is sometimes affected by what's happening in the water, yes. But oftentimes you're in the boat and the underwater experience, it's a separate thing. It's other, right? You with me? At least it's easy to pretend that it's other, that these things aren't connected. They are, of course, But we drift along in the boat trying to be oblivious to our surroundings, right? To what's directly beneath us. So if you've been hanging out with me lately in my classes or small groups, you've heard me talk about the poet Maggie Smith. She's just incredible. And her newest book, You Could Make This Place Beautiful, my goodness, it's so, so good. She says this right at the beginning of the book. She writes, "There are stowaways in so many stories about long journeys across the sea. There are storms, the water gnawing at the hull, desperately wanting to find its way inside. There are shipwrecks, but sometimes it is less dramatic but more tense. There's something moving, dark and slow, in the water beneath the boat. Something you don't want to see, but you have to see it." Something you don't want to see, but you have to see it. Yes. I think this is what can happen. And this is why I use the imagery of the boat sometimes with myself and with my students when we're talking about anxiety. It's like we lull ourselves into some false sense of complacency by thinking that we're in the boat, unaffected by what's happening beneath the surface of the water. But what's moving below the boat isn't completely separate. The thoughts, the belief systems, the feelings, the emotions, it's all there beneath the surface. We don't always see the thoughts and feelings. We can't always touch them or get our arms around them from the illusory safety of the boat. But they're there. Sometimes you may not want to see it, but you have to see it. Thoughts and feelings, they have a way of staying below the surface until they're not, right? Have you noticed? Thoughts and feelings are in your mind and they're on your heart, in your gut, until they rise up, until you have to see them. And I use the image of the boat to remind us that we may feel like we're floating along, just drifting on the water's surface, but we have to look underneath the boat. We have to see it. The thoughts and feelings below the surface, they're always there, right? It's the stowaways, the stormy seas, the shipwrecks, even the sharks circling around us. They're there. Not always, no, but they pass through. Something you don't want to see, but you have to see it. We're in a far better, more empowered, more authentic position if we're willing to see it. It's when we don't look, when we refuse to see below the surface, that we suffer. We don't know how to take care of the thoughts and feelings, right? We resist coming to terms with how we're thinking or what we're feeling in the hopes that if we don't look, it's not real. But just like the stowaways, the storms, the shipwrecks, they're there. Not looking doesn't make them disappear. And knowing what we're dealing with is a far stronger place to operate from than avoidance, resistance, and denial. Okay, so that's the boat. One mental image to help us become more self-aware, maybe even more self-compassionate on this journey to transforming anxiety. Next is the volcano. This is one I use a lot because I think this mental picture is actually something we all resonate with where stress and anxiety are concerned because we use words like explode, erupt, blow up, right? These are ways we talk about these kinds of emotions, and they're words and adjectives we use to describe volcanoes, right? This probably already resonates and tracks, right? These are maybe words you even use yourself. So I want to consider this mental image a bit deeper though. So bring into your mind's eye the image of a volcano. And again, I think most of us can relate to what it feels like to live right at the tippy top. Like where any little thing, the wrong word, a delay, something that spills or falls over and breaks, any of those little things, it like pushes us over the edge and we explode, right? We erupt, blow up, boil over. We can even feel that hot, fiery, lava-like sensation when our inner volcano goes off, right? So as we consider a practice, a life where we're transforming anxiety and not living right at that edge, where we aren't always so close to erupting all the time, where we have a bit of wiggle room and some space to breathe and be resilient with what life is throwing at us, we're talking about pulling ourselves deeper into the belly of the volcano, like living further away from that edge and not feeling always so close to the eruption point, where it takes more to make us boil over. This is what we talked about too in the window of tolerance episode, if you remember that one. This is where we have a lot of room and space and time to consider things and our words and actions before we blow up. You know what I mean? So the further we live away from the very top edge of that volcano, the less explosive we are. We aren't so prone to panic or anxiety attacks. We aren't erupting in anger or lashing out with our words. We aren't biting back or overreacting when things get difficult and challenging in life. We're able to pause and breathe, and then we respond much more carefully and mindfully. It's like we aren't exploding, we are being, right? So I think of the volcano and I like to ask my students how close to the top they're living. Like, are you literally on edge? Is exploding and erupting your go-to coping mechanism when things get tough? Or do you feel like you can pull yourself back from that edge? Do you have skills and tools to pull you deeper into the belly of the volcano? Where from that space, it takes a lot to explode and erupt and spill over the top. And if not, what would help and support and serve to pull you further down into that volcano? How could you create that space? How can you give yourself room so you're not spilling over and erupting? Worth considering. All right, the boat, the volcano. What about the mountaintop? All right, I know you've probably heard me talk about my weird fascination with Mount Everest. There's a bunch of reasons I'm so taken with it, with watching documentaries and reading about people climbing Mount Everest, like the mindset, the challenge, the commitment, all of that, of course, is right up my alley. There's something really cool, I think, about watching how hardcore humans can be. It's just fascinating to me how extreme we can get. But also, there's something very primal about reaching an apex, right? About climbing and struggling and being challenged and then arriving and standing on top. About feeling like you've overcome and even conquered something. And that is what I mean here when I talk about evoking the mental image of a mountaintop. Sometimes we treat our struggles and challenges as if they are a never-ending climb. It's never going to be over, right? This feeling, this pain, this difficulty, it's here forever. Now, I think we mostly know logically that that's not likely to be the case. But we also can't quite help but fall into the trap of believing that it might kind of pan out that way, right? That this climb, this struggle, this emotion, this painful experience is now our life. So I like to call up the image of a mountain and remind myself it's not always uphill. It's not always suffering and struggling and pain. And listen, if you've ever done some serious hiking before or climbing, right? If you've been on the side of a mountain before, you know it's not a cakewalk going downhill either necessarily. That can be painful in a different way. You can breathe a bit easier, but it's still a slog, right? And here's what I want to remind you. Your life isn't all uphill. It's not all downhill. And here's a fun life hack. You can almost always pause, turn around, and take in the scenery, like literally and metaphorically. Whenever I'm out in Colorado, hiking tall, hard, challenging mountains, right? You know, I have a thing for 14ers. It feels like an absolute epiphany to remember, like, oh yeah, I can stop for a moment. I could turn around. I could take in the view. You can breathe. You can have a granola bar. You can chat or joke with a fellow climber for a minute. And I've heard my yoga teacher, she said something really similar often in class. Janet Stone is my teacher. And she'll sometimes remind us when we're in a challenging pose and we're holding it and we're holding it and we're just kind of starting to curse her because our muscles are shaking. It's all feeling so hard and intense. She reminds us, hey, you could just stand up or sit down. Like, you don't have to do this. If you're in Warrior 2 and it sucks, just straighten your leg. Yeah, just stop hiking and turn around and take in the view. Yes, you don't have to keep going. You don't have to keep pushing. Stop for a moment. Breathe. Look around. Take it all in. And then when you're ready, then you can push some more. Then you can keep going. And the mountains aren't forever. Like even Everest, right? There's a summit. You will reach the top of the struggle, the end of the challenge. The pain will not last forever. And then you're on the other side. Then you're coming down. You're breathing easier. Then you're back at the car and you're heading towards like the best meal ever, or at least the one that's going to taste the best, right? The pain will abate. The struggle will end every time. How do I know? Okay, well, actually, let's just flow right into the next one from here because the tide. This is how I know it will end. The boat, the volcano, the mountaintop, the tide. This is another mental image. This is another picture from nature that we can hold in our mind's eye that really speaks to the way of things. It ebbs and it flows. High tide, low tide. The waves crash and then they recede over and over and over again. Now, I know you've heard this one before. I feel like it's something we borrow from nature and use in pretty much everyday language all the time. This isn't a new concept, but worth revisiting, worth bringing up here because it's true. Things ebb and flow. Pain and difficulty, it crashes down in huge waves and then it eases up. It's all both, right? Anxiety, stress, overwhelm, worry, grief, sadness, anger, it all ebbs and flows. And listen, the good stuff does too. The joy, the ease, the happiness, the humor, the contentment, the steadiness, it ebbs and flows too. Sometimes the tide is strong. Sometimes it laps at your feet. Sometimes it feels like the waves crash one after the other, so intense and strong. Other times it just seems peaceful and quiet. There's a stillness to it. Like I said, I know this isn't groundbreaking. I know this isn't brand new information. You've heard this before. But when you consider these mental images, right? The boat, the volcano, the mountaintop, the tide, it can help to support you when you're in it. These pictures in your mind's eye can give you a map, an anchor, something to just hold on to when it feels like the anxiety is absolutely overwhelming. And that is what I wanted to give you today. A port in the storm, a safe haven, a way to get yourself back to stability internally, even when things seem or feel awful. I know, I've been there. I so get it. And these are things I personally use. These are tools I teach. These are ideas I share with my students regularly. I truly believe we need a variety of tools to support ourselves and to take care of ourselves. And here's a few more, right? The boat, the volcano, the mountaintop, the tide. All right, one last note for today. There's a reason I use nature in all of these examples. And it's because humans need to be engaged with nature. We need to get outside. We need to breathe fresh air and put ourselves under trees and walk near water and hear bird song and engage with changing seasons and weather and landscapes. It is hardwired into our brains. There's so much research and studies out there about how much humans need nature in their lives. Florence Williams, she wrote this book called The Nature Fix. The subtitle is Why Nature Makes Us Happier, Healthier, and More Creative. And she said this: here are some of the essential take-homes. We all need nearby nature. We benefit cognitively and psychologically from having trees, bodies of water, and green spaces just to look at. We should be smarter about landscaping our schools, hospitals, workplaces, and neighborhoods so everyone gains. We need quick incursions to natural areas that engage our senses. Everyone needs access to clean, quiet, and safe natural refuges in a city. Short exposures to nature can make us less aggressive, more creative, more civic-minded, and healthier overall. For warding off depression, let's go with the Finnish recommendation of 5 hours a month in nature, minimum. But as the poets, neuroscientists, and river runners have shown us, we also at times need longer, deeper immersion into wild spaces to recover from severe distress, to imagine our futures, and to be our best civilized selves. So I'd like to say I purposely invoked nature in these examples and made sure to include a variety of naturally occurring phenomena, but I didn't do it intentionally. I did it because this is what's worked for me over many years, because this is where research keeps pointing me, and because I've worked with so many students over the years and they resonate with these kinds of tools and practices deeply too. It comes organically, pun not intended, to go to nature. We have to. So sure, thousands of mental images could work for these kinds of practices, for transforming anxiety, for calming the mind and anchoring ourselves to ourselves. I highly recommend nature. It's a balm to our soul. And although, of course, real nature is best, like actually getting outside and engaging with the natural world, there's also research that suggests calling these things into your mind's eye does the trick as well. That it's a way of almost simulating nature for your brain and that it counts. So, the boat, the volcano, the mountaintop, the tide. Weird title, but hopefully a helpful and supportive podcast episode for you. All right, please don't forget to rate and review the show, particularly on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'd be grateful to you for sure. And to all of our other anxiety-prone friends, they'll be more easily able to find the help and the support they want if you would rate and review the show. I will be back next week for more Transforming Anxiety. And until then, please take care. Do you have someone to help you with your stress, anxiety, worry, and overwhelm? If not, I would love to be your coach. The Fierce Calm Project is my virtual coaching program where we get to go in on topics like this one, and I can help you apply these lessons to your life so that you're creating your own transformation. We do live coaching calls, guided meditations, on-demand yoga classes. We hold book club where we read books your neighborhood book club won't, and there's lots of bonus content that I've created just for you. When you're ready to take what you're learning on the podcast to a whole other level, then come on over and check out the Fierce Calm Project at kellyhanlonmccormick.com/Fierce Calm Project.